This is Maurine Kwende, your podcast host, and you are listening to the Empowerment Minutes podcast. If you're here for the first time, it's a podcast to empower you with nuggets on learning and development, training, leadership, coaching, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. I am a learning leader, researcher, speaker, coach, consultant, and author of the book Dream Big and Live Your Dreams Boldly. I'm also the CEO and founder of EMK Learning Solutions LLC. I have had the privilege to coach aspiring instructional designers and trainers, learning and development professionals become better leaders. So if you're wanting to receive some help in this area, I'm more than happy to help, okay? Just be in touch with me. So I'm so glad to be back on the show this week for another empowering episode. And of course, I always get started with a thank you message. I want to say thank you so much for listening in every week. This means a whole lot to me and the other fans. So thank you so much. So this month, as you know, on the podcast, we're focused on aspiring managers and leaders. So we're doing a series since the beginning of the month. And so today is the last episode of the Aspiring Managers series. The focus of today's episode is about transitioning from manager to leader. You know, many times people use the words manager and leader interchangeably, but they are two distinct things actually. They're different. You know, managers refer to the process while leadership is the people. Leaders and managers, they share some essential characteristics, yes. However, there are so many dissimilarities that make them distinct. So, while leadership is about building a vision for people to follow, management is really looking after the day-to-day operations of a business. So the manager focuses on, having employees achieve company goals, while leadership, it's about empowering employees to be the best version of themselves. So now that we're clear about what management is and what leadership is, then let's talk about how to transition from manager to leader. So we have about 5 tips to share today on the podcast. The first thing I want to talk about is micromanagement. Yes, in my career, I've seen the worst micromanagers. I have seen micromanagement more than I would have ever wanted. I could be here all day to talk about this topic, but if you're curious what micromanagement is a management style whereby a manager, closely observes, controls, the employees and subordinates, reminds them of their work. It's all over the place. If you're wondering, have I really experienced this? Let me tell you some signs, yeah? So here are some signs that your boss is a micromanager. So they have to know everything that you're doing. They don't want to delegate work. They keep asking for frequent updates, asking you to CC them in emails that you're sending to your coworkers. They discourage all sorts of independent decision making. They want to make all decisions themselves, right? They dictate how tasks should be done. They want to tell you to do the job and how it's done and what time. They're all over the place. They redo, the work of other employees because they feel that what they're doing is not enough. They don't want to give control, right? They don't trust their team. They don't trust in their abilities, even though they hired them, right? So I believe after the COVID, most micromanagers were those who actually wanted employees to return to work as soon as possible so they can control their time or whatnot. So, so if you have a boss who's a micromanager, here are some signs. And micromanagement is the first thing that I really want to talk about. As a leader, you do not necessarily have to know all the details of the tasks your employees do. Rather, you should focus on the end result, right? You have to, of course, do regular check-ins and see if they need your help or if there is some discussion where they want your feedback, but give them control. Let them have some creative time, the time to do some work, to have the freedom to be creative, to do their work, right? Make them feel trusted, right? Because this also improves their performance in the workplace. So the first tip, as I mentioned, is micromanagement. A leader does not micromanage people, right? Give people the freedom to do their work while you're just checking in on them and giving them support, right? The second tip I want to share is to empower your employees. truly care about who they are, that's why you hire them. Care about their growth, their personal growth, their professional growth. Ask them what you can do to have them succeed. Challenge them and support them. Give them the tools and opportunities to grow. Of course, to do this, you have to build trust. You have to also communicate and have a good relationship. All of this all go together while you're empowering your employees. The third tip I want to share is listening. Oh my goodness. Many times leaders do not listen. To transition from a manager to a leader, you have to become a very good listener. You need to listen to your team. It's not about telling them what to do. It's about being there for your team. Employees want to feel heard, right? Ask them for their opinion, and not just asking for their opinion for the sake of it. Implement the ideas, right? This would make them feel valued and involved and be, part of the team. I have been with organizations where your input doesn't matter even when you share them. No one cares. They just do whatever the manager does or the manager wants, right? That's not a good example of leadership. Okay, you wanting to not just transition from a manager to a leader. You wanting to be a leader that is exceptional. It's really transforming your team. So yes, be a good listener. You'd be so glad you did. The fourth tip is about feedback. You can lead people all you want, but you need to know what your thoughts are, right? Ask them for feedback on your leadership. It may be questions like, how am I doing as a leader, right? So they can give you some feedback. Are you doing well? Are you meeting the expectations? And then perhaps a follow-up question would be, what could be better, right? How can you be a better leader? So ask for the feedback sincerely. When you have to make changes, make them, right? And now the bonus tip is about vision and values. What's the vision for your team? What are your values? How can you be sure that they're aligned with the organization's values? For example, if one of the company's values is integrity, how can you weave that into your leadership style? And how can your team be intentional about integrity? And how about your vision? Great leaders truly care for their employees. As a final thought, many employees quit their leaders, not the organizations. I'm hoping you want to transition from a manager to an amazing leader. Hopefully your employees will talk about you as a leader who transformed the workplace and greatly impacted their personal and professional growth. Hopefully this is part of your legacy. So that's it for this week's podcast. Thank you so much. Be safe, be well, and I'll see you next week on the next one.